Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for joining today. We really appreciate you taking a little time out of your week um, and giving us that. And I hope that this is super captivating because I know that it has been for me and all that I've learned. I'm Ashley. I'm with Centurion Technologies. And I wanted to first go over just some housekeeping. If you haven't attended one of our energy saving webinars before, first of all, make sure that you are mute. I see that we all are just so we can give our presenter that much more of our engagement. I did also want to let you know that this is being recorded and we will be publishing this afterwards on our website. So if you'd like to, make sure your video is off. And if you don't mind, then you don't mind. Also, lastly, there's a chat feature in the bottom center of your Zoom screen. Please utilize that for any questions. I will interrupt our presenter to make sure that those are answered in a timely fashion, or we'll make sure that they're held till the end. Before we dive right in, I wanted to express that there's really no mistaking that batteries are paving the way for a more renewable and sustainable future, especially with energy usage. And we're very excited to learn a lot more about that from Fortress Power today. They are a true partner of Centurion Technologies. And I think we'd be remiss if I didn't take a hot second to introduce Craig Kuchbaugh. He's the owner of Centurion Technologies, and he is the one who has made these webinars possible. So Craig, do you mind unmuting yourself and saying hello and introducing our presenter?
No, Ashley, I don't. And as much credit goes to Ashley for putting these things together. This is what, Ashley, our sixth or seventh one or something like that. They've largely gone on without a total hitch. We are going to continue the series through these through 2024. So please stay involved. There'll be all kinds of subjects. Next month's subject is going to cover fuel cells and some new technology from electrolyzers. That's a real game changer in the market. Today, we do have Alex with us from Fortress Battery, who's going to tell us everything we want to know or want to forget about batteries. Alex, we've had the privilege of working with Alex for a while. He is a part of our organization. I see Scott Amaduri is on with us too from EnerLogic, who is our solar development partner, and a special thanks to Ron Conroy from joining us from Lightspec. Today, Ashley, thank you for the efforts. If you have any additional question, please reach out to Ashley. Someone will be back in touch with you regarding your questions or concerns after the webinar. Should you need more information or are interested in previewing the product some more. So without further ado, I want to turn over to Alex. Ashley, thank you so much for your help with this.
Craig, Ashley, it's really fantastic to be here. I've been looking forward to the webinar for a while. Hey there, everybody. My name's Alex Lepore. I'm the sales director here at Fortress Power. I've been with the company for almost 6 years now and was the first employee, believe it or not, back in 2017. So today's presentation, I got a good one for you guys. We're going to talk about all sorts of different topics. We're going to talk about first who we are at Fortress Power. Second, we're going to talk about some of the different applications for utilizing energy storage, whether you're an installer partner or whether you're someone interested in energy storage for your home or business. We're then going to do a quick recap and reflect on this past year. There have been a lot of changes regarding energy storage policy, technology in this past year, and I would be remiss to not mention them on this webinar today. And then I'm going to talk about and dive into some of our current products that we have at Fortress Power. So as Ashley mentioned, I encourage questions. If you have questions or if there are items on this presentation that you are curious about, agree with, or even perhaps disagree with, be welcome to put them in the chat. We can have a good old-fashioned conversation about them. The slides I'm presenting today will be shared. So although I appreciate studious note-taking, you will get these slides after the fact. So you can save them, have them for future review, however you want to use these particular slides. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead, share my screen. I got a couple slides for you. I expect the presentation to take around 30 or 40 minutes or so, and then we can do a Q&A at the end. All righty. Can everybody see my screen here?
Looks beautiful, Alex.
Perfect. Perfect. So for those of you that are unfamiliar with who Fortress Power is and what we do, we are a manufacturer of not only the highest quality battery, but also total energy solutions up to the automotive standard for residential and commercial. Our sizes that we install with or support on start at 5 kilowatt hours, but scale all the way up to 4.2 megawatt hours. So anywhere from your residential to commercial needs, we are the player in one-stop shop for you. So I am sitting here in Langhorne, Pennsylvania, which is just outside of Philadelphia at our US-based headquarters. We have 3 other offices, one in Asia, one in California, which is where I'm located primarily at our satellite office and manager there, and then our Puerto Rico office. So we were founded way back in 2016. Like mentioned, I started in 2017, 2018 as the first employee with the company. And since our inception, we've done over 30,000 installs, not only in the US here, but also in several international markets, including Europe, Africa, South America, Latin America, the Middle East, et cetera, et cetera. So I like mentioning that because we have a lot of experience as it relates to battery-based systems, energy storage systems, and this particular technology. We are backed up by a private equity partner, and we have, since our inception, been the key lithium energy solutions and battery supplier for several government and utility entities. Outside of Philadelphia, we work with SEPTA, which is, if you're in this area, you know that, the Southeastern Pennsylvania Transit Authority. We've worked with the Navajo tribe on the West Coast and other government entities throughout the US. So you can be really confident knowing that I do know a thing or two about some batteries, and I definitely want to encourage your questions. First, I want to talk about the applications. Batteries have really changed in, let's say, my experience within 5 to 6 years. And it's really good to start with a baseline of how to use batteries, and then we'll move into advanced applications for battery-based systems. So there are typically 5 main uses for batteries. The typical one being grid export and or backup, right? This is where if the power goes off and you have solar, NEC code is not going to let you to have that PV system energized. So you need a battery to back up the critical loads. This has been very popular over the last 5 to 10 years, where the technology started with lead acid batteries, moved to lithium, but a lot of it was for the backup scenario. Certainly we have the off-grid applications, right? No connection to the utility whatsoever, right? You have these self-supply applications. So in areas of the country, like for example, Hawaii, where the utility is prohibiting you selling back to the grid or reducing the value of where you're selling back to the grid, having a battery can allow you to capture that excess power from your photovoltaic array to then use at a later date. So you're really saving dollars and cents from a production standpoint because you're not able to sell it back to the grid. We have time of use. For my California folks, they're very familiar with time of use. For those that are not familiar, what the utility does here in this instance is that they're going to charge you twice or even sometimes 3 times the amount of power during peak times. So how we can use batteries in this instance is discharging the battery during those peak times and using that as like an avoided cost solution, right? So instead of paying 50 cents a kW in San Diego for power during the dinner hour, why don't we just discharge the battery during that dinner hour for the critical loads? And you can use that as a way to avoid those costs and reduce your electrical bill. And last but not least, you have demand reduction. More seen in the commercial space, if anything, and I think you will start seeing it more in residential. But what demand reduction is in a concept is that a facility, for example, here at Fortress Power, we use power every month for lights and things like that, right? What the utilities will do will say, well, look, if you get above a certain threshold of usage, we're going to bump you up into your billing tier, or the cost of power is going to increase into that next tier. So how we use batteries in a demand reduction setting is we basically curb the power before it hits that threshold. Let's say it's 100 kW on the facility. We want to make sure that we never use 100 kW on that facility, so that way that facility does not get bumped up into that next tier. And ultimately, as you guys are probably putting together, help them save money. right? We see this a lot in commercial, and I'll talk more about our commercial solutions and support that we have and how we can use those solutions to offset demand reduction. Another synonym for this is peak shaving, right? Where we're shaving the peaks so that way folks don't get bumped up into that next billing tier. So these would be the base applications of how you could use energy storage for your home or business. Really depends on 2 or 3 factors. Where are you located and what are your goals, right? If your goals are to live off the grid and not have to deal with utilities, you're going to go for off grid, right? If your goals are to reduce your electrical cost, maybe you're doing self-supply or time of use. If your goals are just to keep your family safe and secure, then you're going to look at a backup scenario. So it's really important, no matter who you are, to understand where you're at now and where you want to be, and then utilize this technology to fill that gap. Some of the solutions I'll talk about, and I'll speak to how they can fill these respective gaps in between the different applications that are seen here on my screen. 5 main applications that we have. And to speak a little bit more to the demand shading, California, for those that know, had a huge change over the last year or two with the new net metering policy dubbed NEM 3.0. NEM 2.0 was sunsetted because of the fact that the exporting during the peak hours was actually causing, let's say, PG&E and SCE to lose money during those peak times. So particularly in California, you're seeing what has been a duck curve transition to a canyon curve, right? So if you think about, here is the early morning. In the midday, production goes down in megawatts, let's say in residential and commercial homes. And then you see a spike here in the dinner hour, right, where everybody gets home and they're all running the same loads. Now, this is extremely expensive, not only for the utility, but certainly the constituents in that utility's area. And so part of what we see with these solutions is that you can offset and help the utility mitigate these high peaks in usage to not only offset their costs, but offset your costs. Let's say, and this is example in California, but knowing what we know about California, this kind of policy and structure is going to move eastward to perhaps one day back to Philadelphia. So using batteries is much more than just, hey, now we're backing up loads. There's a lot of policy shifting and usage profile shifting for how batteries are being used. And you can see some of these graphs here illustrate how that value can be captured. So how typically they would do it maybe in utility is the gas peaker plants are going to increase output for the evening peaks and cause these spikes, right? That causes our real-time energy prices to skyrocket depending on those particular spikes. So you can use our energy broker platform. I'll introduce that to you guys here in the next couple of slides, and a battery solution to basically either sell back at those high price spikes, or as you may be putting together, offsetting or just not even using or purchasing from the grid for the loads that you use in the afternoon. Interestingly enough, when you look at some of the data analysis on payback rates, when you leverage, let's say, high usage rates in the afternoon, along with our energy broker platform, a lot of these systems, like our systems, have a 10-year warranty. They can pay themselves off in 8, 9, or even 10 years, right? 100% recoup of your investment. There is certainly modeling that goes into that, right? There's a lot of analysis that goes into those sorts of situations, but now is a great time to start looking into that because the cost of power is rising. And I have some notable utilities and some of their plans for increasing their rates, and I'll demonstrate that later in the slide deck. And to add on to that, I want to visualize for you guys how to use energy when it's most valuable. So this is definitely more for my California folks, maybe Hawaii. If you're on the East Coast, the value of power is high in certain states. Certainly the value of solar is low midday because of the duck curve, right? So what we can do is charging the battery in this table on the right during the middle of the day, right? When the sun's in the sky and it's just really charging up your batteries, and then discharging the battery in the evening and selling it back to the utility or to maybe a particular program like the ELRP program, Emergency Load Response Program, to basically recoup or avoid the cost throughout that dinner hour. So you can see batteries have come a long way when you look at applications. And now a lot of folks, particularly in California, we'll use that as a benchmark, are going to be using the power in the evening to avoid their costs or sell back to the wholesale market through our different programs. But what you guys need to know is that batteries, this is not your grandfather's battery, right? Lithium batteries, the technology within them, from the battery management system to the cells to the enclosures that they have, are very advanced. And there's many different ways that you can utilize these solutions to, to your benefit, really to solve whatever need or pain that you're experiencing. It is really interesting to note that not all LFP batteries are the same, right? There are, and for those of you in the industry, if you're calling in today, you know for a fact that over the last year, there have been so many new battery manufacturers coming to the table, right? Everybody's coming out with a new battery or white labeling some other solution. It is very good to know that different manufacturers are going to use different combat mixes, right? The mixes of the actual lithium, the iron, and the phosphate that makes up our cells, which can determine the quality, longevity, and safety. So you'll have one manufacturer that can produce batteries at different levels based on the application, right? Whether it's an automotive application, storage application, or telecommunication application. For those paying attention, you remember that I said at that first slide, we make them up to the automotive grade, right? Because that's the highest quality battery cell that you can purchase, right? And we have a motto here at Fortress Power: we do not overpromise and underdeliver, rather we underpromise and overdeliver, right? So using automotive grade cells increases our lifespan. And in some instances, when you look at the math based on our cycle life, right, 8,000 cycles at 80% depth of discharge with 1 cycle a day, these batteries can last anywhere from 15 to 20 years. You can really dive into the technology of batteries when you look at the particular cell that they're using. There are 3 kinds of cells. There's prismatic cells, cylindrical cells, and pouch cells. Cylindrical cells were really popular back in the day. They were really cheap. The problem was that you'd have hundreds of cylindrical cells making up one battery. We use a prismatic cell. It's a square-shaped cell. They're much larger, right? Which means that not only can you troubleshoot each individual cell, but you can also get performance data on each individual cell to make sure that they're performing as they're supposed to, right? You can check out the battery management system on our solutions or any battery that has a good BMS and prismatic cells to track each one of the performance of that cell. Now, prismatic as a whole has the best power density and thermal stability, meaning that it's the most, the word I'm looking for, you're gonna get the most bang for your buck based on the power that you're purchasing. We'll call it cost per kilowatt hour. And from a safety standpoint, not only is LFP the safest chemistry by far, but using these prismatic cells really leans into that safety feature and that safety aspect. One last thing, and we'll jump into some more of the regulations later in the deck, amongst other things, but some of these new batteries coming into the market are not ready for new code requirements, even if they are LFP. So I always caution folks, price tag, as you see batteries that are really cheap, I always want you guys to ask really good questions. Are they UL listed? What UL listings are they listed to? Where are they manufactured? What kind of cells? What kind of BMS? As you guys know, the gleanness or the shininess of cheap goes away when things start going wrong. So I always tell folks at Fortress, we never aim to be the cheapest battery manufacturer, but rather the highest quality at the most affordable price. So again, not all LFP batteries or solutions are considered the same. Cheap batteries, you are going to pay for what you get. You have to be very careful when choosing your battery. Do your research is always my biggest thing. Do your research, read reviews. There are so many different forums and review sites that you can go on and check out. That'll give you a really good idea. Is this a technology worth investing into? Should I consider a different solution? The different programs that you can leverage with our batteries include things like the California Energy Broker Program. And in California, and I'll go back to one of my previous slides, we have a program where we can sell back to the CAISO wholesale market when power is costing the highest. Let me repeat that. So not only can you use our energy broker platform, right, to, let's say, offset your high time use rates in the evening, you can sell back the power from your battery in the evening to the wholesale market, just like you would in the stock market when power is the highest, and you're going to receive a check from Fortress Power that's going to basically pay you for the power that you had sold back. So in California, we're seeing folks that lean into these different energy broker programs along with their, let's say, NEM3 time of use rate. And this is where we're starting to see really aggressive payback rates in 5 to 7 years. If you want to learn more about Energy Broker, you can head over to www.fortresspower.com. Go underneath applications on the tabs and look at Energy Broker. You can find a plethora of information about what Energy Broker is. The other different programs that we have, because we have a software arm of our company, include the WattSmart program in Utah, right? The WattSmart program is going to give you, I believe, $400 per kW based on the inverter size with a battery installed in the Rocky Mountain Power Territory. For my quick math thinkers, that's $4,800 for the end user to get cash from the utility for just installing the dang system. That's a free inverter. In Hawaii, there's the battery bonus program on Oahu and Maui that we're eligible with our solutions. And in the Northeast, there's the Connected Solutions program. There are many ways now to purchase a battery and recoup an investment, much more so than there were 5 years ago. So I always recommend to folks doing your research, checking out the program, see if it's a good fit for you and your needs. But what you guys need to know is Fortress really went the extra mile with acquiring a microgrid controller company so we could be a part of these programs and ultimately add more value to the folks that are installing these on their homes or on their businesses. As we all saw this past year, these programs are going to become even more important because of how interest rates have really, I don't know, what's the English word I'm looking for here? Flew off the radar this past year. And you can see just from 2022 in the graph on the left, the federal funds rate in red, from 2022 to 2023, 5% interest rate percentage change. The effects on this on the solar installation were massive. If you look at some of the data, I won't dive into this data, it's available online, but the amount of solar installations dropped drastically because financing and cash deals were just not, financing TPO and cash deals were just not beneficial to the client. So that's why I talked about these different programs, because in an era where interest rates are soaring, knock on wood, hopefully they come down next year. If I had my crystal ball, maybe I could tell you, but if they don't come down, then what? Right? Whether you're a homeowner, an installer, or a business owner, you want to figure out, well, how do I mitigate and grow my business, whether I'm an installer installing solar? How do I add storage on so I can avoid these really high costs in the evening? A lot of it is case by case, but there are certain concepts and practices that you can follow, like finding the right technology, finding the right program for you, and understanding the macroeconomics of interest rates, inflation, supply chain, so on and so forth. This was found from the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve System on dailysignal.com. I included the link here on the bottom. So you'll be able to check this data out on your own. Now, it's definitely something I'm keeping my eye on moving into next year as I put together what I believe is going to happen next year. Next year. My belief, and folks, feel welcome to jump in the chat if you have a different opinion or want to lean into my opinion here, would be that the first quarter or two, I don't think we're going to see a change in the interest rates, but in the second half of the year, I believe we will, and we're going to see the industry, at least the renewable energy industry, get back on track in terms of volume of KW installed and volumes of projects being sold. Because of the interest rates, these different programs driving demand, the cost of these solutions is actually falling. Believe it or not, the cost of batteries is falling because of excess supply in the overseas manufacturing markets. So I think you're going to see a couple of these factors come in and ultimately affect the battery space in a positive way by more installations getting installed. If you look at, if I don't have a graph on this certainly, but if you looked at probably the inflation rate from this year to last year, I would imagine it looks like an exponential increase would be my guess. However, I just don't have that data, but I would be interested to see if that follows a similar trend here. All good things to know, no matter where you are in your process as a stakeholder in batteries in this technology, it is very good to know and even better to understand. The market this past year talked about some of these different programs, talked about applications. I just wanted to shout out some of the notable utility rate hikes that happened this year. 13% increase in PG&E, Pacific Gas and Electric, here in Northern California. Portland General Electric, 17% increase rate hike. Xcel in Colorado, 4.4%. Duke Energy in the Carolinas, 17.2% aggregated over 3 years. NYSEG, New York, 8.4%. Southern California Edison, which is where I'm located, is projecting had a 17% increase in 2022, and they are looking at perhaps another rate hike moving into next year. So this isn't just me speculating. This is fact of the matter of these published rates are increasing year over year, and the cost of power is only going to get higher, right? So your investment now in solar and storage is going to be more advantageous the sooner than you do it. Yes, I understand it's expensive, and I do understand maybe the price will come down, but that's where you have to look at your opportunity cost and the cost of not doing anything, because doing nothing is still an action technically, right? So whether you're an installer and you're just considering batteries, or whether you're an end user and you're maybe have poked around with the idea of solar, you have solar but haven't pulled the trigger on batteries, or maybe you're a business owner and you're thinking about batteries to your business because you have a commercial facility, I can give you one promise between all three of you: your rates are going to go up at some point. Investing in renewable solutions or distributed energy resources is going to help you mitigate your costs, help us transition to our renewable energy goals for 2035 or 2050 as the United States, and ultimately prepare you for maybe another 13% or another 17% if you're in Southern California Edison territory. These are residential rates. I don't even want to look at commercial rates. That's probably a whole other can of worms. So these are just residential rates, right? And between these, six, you're looking at maybe, this is probably the population of a quarter of a country, right? Because of the size of these utilities that are now charging on average, what would you say, maybe 10, 15%, hiking the rates up year over year. And I don't know, but I don't believe that they're planning on slowing this trend anytime soon. 5 years ago, however, I didn't have this data, right? And I was telling folks, well, getting a battery prepares you for the worst, right? Because NOAA, the National Oceanic Atmospheric Association, published data that the once in every 500-year storm was happening once every 3 years. The average hurricane season lasted a month longer. The chances of a major hurricane increased from like 10% to 50%. Right? Climate change events are getting worse. So now between climate change events, cost of power going up, it's becoming a much easier decision for a lot of folks to see these renewable solutions as a feasible option for them. Do your research. Go to fortresspower.com, read the blog articles, get different sources of information, talk to different people. Depending on why you're joining this call today, you'll be able to get some answers. And certainly you can reach out to Fortress, and I'm glad to help with any questions that you might have to the best of my ability. I'll take a pause. We're going to go through some of the products here. You can see behind me, I actually have our products at the HQ. I'm not going to fiddle around with them, but I want you to see them so you can see what they look like. But I see there are 2 questions in the chat, and I want to take the time, Ashley, if you can just let me know if those are questions, comments, concerns. I would like to address them before I jump into the second half of the presentation here today.
We don't have any questions in the chat as of yet. I've put out a couple reminders. If anybody would like to chime in with a question now, you are welcome to unmute and ask, so we can still take this pause.
If there are no questions, I must be doing a pretty dang good job. But don't be shy if you do.
You are doing a great job, Alex. So that must be it.
I hope so. I hope everybody's awake as well. I know it's Wednesday, 5 days till the big day. I know we're all sick of webinars, but hang in there from you guys. We only got a couple more minutes. We're going to talk about the actual products. And what I want to do here is talk about what makes Fortress different than the plethora of other batteries. Certainly experience and time speaks volumes. The other thing is really what is inside this battery that I keep talking about, right? We've talked about the tier 1 automotive grade prismatic cells, 10-year warranty, 8,000 cycle life. The enclosure of our main battery, the EvolMax, is an aluminum enclosure, right? EvolMax has been one of our flagship products for many years. It's a 48-volt battery. It's 18.5 kilowatt hours, and it's one big battery. You guys can see it here behind me. I can't see myself, so a little clutter. We're doing some testing, but you can see here, it's around the size of a university refrigerator. A lot of folks love this solution because you wheel it in, you'll see it comes on casters on the screen, you wheel it onto site, you plug and play it with your inverter, and you're done. So it's a very easy to install, has a lot of backup capacity depending on how you want to use it, And it also has I'm a little biased, but it has a very nice look, right? With the LCD display, you can get all the different values of your battery, like state of charge, power output, consumption data, how many batteries you have in parallel, amongst other safety features to tell you if there's a low temperature sensor went off, to ultimately help Fortress Power do its job if you have any technical support questions. For folks looking at larger systems, you can put up to 20, that's right, 20 of these batteries together for a whopping 370 kilowatt hour battery bank. Wow, that's a lot of batteries. Why would someone want to do this? Maybe a small commercial facility wanting to use it for those applications I aforementioned. Maybe it's a luxury home like Craig has, right, where he needs to back up his mansion with all the different loads in his home and he needs a big battery. We do have closed loop communication with many hybrid inverters, including our very own the Envy, which I'll introduce to you guys here today. But just know the EVOL Max is one big battery meant for hoping to start taking you to a whole home backup solution. For those of you in California, this is one of the, if not the largest single unit that's approved for SGIP, the Self-Generation Incentive Program, at 17.7 kilowatt hours of AC power. There are other programs throughout the US, and I would recommend you do your research to find out if you can leverage these programs to help you, whether it's Energy Broker, a state program. A good resource for this, everybody, is desireusa.org, DSIREUSA.org. Do not do.com. Just don't do it. Okay? In that website, you'll be able to find all of the different statewide incentives for renewable resources, whether it's heat pumps, well pumps, solar, storage, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, depending on what state that you are located in at the time of this webinar. DesireUSA.org. Go ahead.
Sorry about that, Alex.
Okay.
We did have a question pop in. Can you talk a little bit about the safety of these batteries?
Absolutely. Thank you for your question. Safety is important, contrary to belief. So LFP is the main function of what constitutes a safe battery. LFP is an acronym for lithium ferrophosphate, right? Tesla uses a nickel manganese cobalt chemistry. Although the cobalt chemistry is more energy dense, right, which is why they use it in electric vehicles. You need a dense battery to move it from point A to point B. LFP is a little less energy dense, but a lot safer because it does not have cobalt, right? The temperature for thermal runaway with that particular chemistry is like 600 degrees Fahrenheit, right? With cobalt, it's a little bit lower. Don't ask me what it is. I don't know off the top of my head. But you have the differences in the chemistry itself, which makes it a lot safer. The second thing is the BMS. The battery management system is the brain of the battery. There are two kinds of battery management systems. There's a relay, we'll call it a digital processor, right, which has a fuse and a relay that opens and closes. And then there's a MOSFET, which is just similar to like a computer board. The relay-based BMS acts as not only the brain, but the protection mechanism of the battery. So for example, let's say you have this plugged in with your inverter, high surge comes off the inverter, starts going into the battery, that fuse is going to open. That way that power cannot impact the battery cells and ultimately, affect the battery cells, could cause issues. These batteries can be fickle, right? There's a lot of interaction between chemical engineering, mechanical engineering in that. So having a really good BMS and the right chemistry helps us protect our batteries from those thermal runaway events. Our batteries are listed to UL 9540A that you'll see here on the right. What they do, you're not going to believe me, they try and blow it up. If it doesn't blow up, you get the 9540A report. If it does blow up, you're in some trouble. But we have these different UL listings to prove that our batteries pass this testing, that they won't experience thermal runaway, and that they are extremely, extremely safe. What leads to that? The kind of cell that you use, the kind of chemistry that you're building with, the BMS that they're using. Also proper sizing and designing. More on that a little bit later in the presentation. I hope that answers your question. Thank you for the good question too. Anybody else? A lot of folks look at this and are like, well, this is an expensive battery. You guys are probably on Google right now, Googling EVOL Max cost, seeing some prices, and you're like, well, shoot, it's a big battery. It's a lot of power. What Fortress and the engineers came up with now is the eFlex. It's a 5.5 kilowatt hour battery. It's still 48 volt, but it's a smaller form factor, right? Instead of 18.5 kilowatt hours, it's 5.4 kilowatt hours. It is using the exact same automotive prismatic LFP cells, but again, it's just a smaller form factor. The enclosure on this, as you can see, it's a 1/4 inch thick aluminum that can handle up to 4 times better thermal performance because this is an outdoor rated solution. For those that are familiar with aluminum as a raw material, it's very resistant to corrosion, and it can also dissipate heat evenly across the battery. So you have this 5.5 kilowatt hour battery, you can install it outside, but we went a step further by having the safest chemistry and this 1/4 inch thick aluminum to dissipate heat, protect against corrosion in coastal environments, and ultimately make it a very flexible, pun intended, as the name implies, right? In terms of size and then installation location. You can't see it behind me because it's not behind me, but you could have the eFlex as a wall mountable solution, right? Where the eVault, as you see here, is just sitting on the floor. The eFlex could be wall mounted above that. Maybe you're on the garage and you don't have room for the eVault Max. You could have this in a rack solution. I'm going to introduce to you in the next slide, or just as you would with typical batteries, you can have this as a floor standing solution. It has that
Alex,
same. Yes, Ashley, go ahead.
sorry to interrupt you again.
Okay.
This kind of falls in line with what you're talking about right now, and I think you semi-answered it, but maybe you could put it all in a beautiful package. A question just came in. What relay manufacturer do you use? What inverters are supported, and can they be used outdoors?
I'm going to start with the first one. The second one is the first one is proprietary. If you have questions on that, let's reach out to me directly. We can work through that process. The inverters we work with include our very own, the Envy. Other inverters we worked with, the closed loop communication, include companies like Schneider, Solarc, Victron. More on that, if you go, I know I keep saying the website, and I'm sorry I keep sending you there, but if you go to the website and you go to the if you go to the minimum sizing guide tab, you'll not only be able to see what inverters we have closed loop communication with, but also the minimum sizing for the different batteries. You get a very good picture of between all the inverter partners we work with, including our own, who is open loop, who is closed loop. For those of you that, and I just want to speak to it, because not everybody's thinking, what do you mean closed and open loop? It is basically the aspect of the battery BMS communicating with the inverter. There are studies being done, and I don't know if they're finalized yet, but there are studies being done that closed loop communication, it can actually extend the life of the battery because it's communicating with the inverter, right? For really close charging and discharging. But that would hopefully answer your question on who do we work with. We work with a lot of different brands. We have our own. There are benefits, pros and cons to working with a third party inverter and working with our inverter, right? Quality, support, so on and so forth. But we have a lot of partners we worked with over the years. I hope that answers your question. Thank you for asking. eFlex has a little bit of a sizing limitation. You can put up to 30 of these batteries in parallel for 162 kilowatt hours. So this is really our tried and true residential offering. And although you can use it in residential homes, you can use this in mobile applications. I've seen this in RVs, for example. I've seen this in railway applications like we did with SEPTA, marine applications. If you want to put this thing on a boat, right? For my boaters out there, my captains. And you can also use this for telecommunication applications. The eFlex is a very rugged battery. Because of that aluminum enclosure, it's a sealed IP65 rated solution. And again, scalable to 30. You'll see on the right-hand side, listen to that same UL 9540 and 9540A test to really lean into that safety aspect of our solution. The Flex Tower is a couple moving parts here. First, you have this bottom cabinet, which fits up to 4 of the eFlexes, right? Wiring this up, it goes from the Durac, we call it, up to this top-end cabinet, which is going to fit your inverter. More batteries are getting pushed outside. 2 reasons for that. One, NFPA 855, its National Fire Code, is basically pushing batteries outside because of installation requirements. You also have the new NEC code is requiring that batteries go outside. And it's already being implemented here in California. It's NEC 2023. So whether you're a homeowner or whatever stakeholder you are at in this, be aware that batteries are going to get pushed outside. So what Fortress did was said, okay, we have an outdoor rated battery, an outdoor rated inverter, in an outdoor rated box with venting on the inverter side, passive venting here on the battery side. So that way, not only can we install it outside to handle the elements, but we can also mitigate the temperature. And in the battery cabinet itself, there's a DIN rail. On that DIN rail is where you're going to have your combiner block for all the batteries sitting in this cabinet. There's also an area you can put a heater, like a Stego heater and a temperature sensor. So if you're, in Philadelphia today and it's 40 degrees, that temperature sensor is gonna notify the heater to turn on to keep the batteries within our recommended temperature ranges, which is anywhere from 32 degrees Fahrenheit to 114 degrees Fahrenheit.
All right. Question, Alex, regarding the temperature, since being out here in Arizona, you put stuff out here in Arizona, those boxes are going to get hotter than 114 degrees.
That's right. That's right. So especially in Arizona, what I've seen folks do is on the inverter side, there's a fan so we can keep the air circulating to help with the ventilation. That's the biggest thing, right? We can't get rid of high temperatures, but through ventilation methods, you can mitigate them. A lot of times with batteries, we're not too concerned about high temperatures, believe it or not. The bad omen for batteries is usually colder temperatures, believe it or not. So it's interesting because high temperatures, it's not ideal to operate in those conditions, but what I'd recommend to you, Chuck, is you can install this outside. You would want to maybe not install it in direct rain or direct sun or rain. That's like general guidance. Keeping it out of direct sun is going to keep it maybe 10 to 15 degrees cooler during the summer, right? Because you're not going to have the direct sun. And then there's different ventilation tactics that you can use. I wouldn't be too concerned about that. Again, we have that quarter-inch thick aluminum, which is going to dissipate heat evenly to support the batteries. And then we have a ventilation fan on the inverter itself. A lot of the times I'm always concerned about cold more than warm, because technically the batteries, like I said, I've seen some batteries in Arizona where it's gotten to like 130, and they're sitting outside. But again, that's why we use that relay. That's why we use that aluminum enclosure, because we wanted to mitigate those temperatures, not just remove them altogether.
Yeah, I mean that seems to be some of the general concerns out here in the desert about the temperature and operations. So, all right, thanks, Alex.
Chuck, you're really welcome. It's a very good question, and I always tell folks that a lot of those considerations Chuck's talking about, everybody, are exactly how you should start thinking about your project. Where do I live? What space do I have? If this thing goes outside, what information can I get from the manufacturer to properly design and size this system so that way it doesn't fail, right? You want to make sure that you're taking all these into account, because just like investing into a car, you want to do your research, you want to prepare. You're not going to buy, a Suburban if it's just you and one other person, right? That's not good sizing and designing from an automotive aspect. The same applies here for batteries. A little bit more moving parts, being installed near and around your home, but a similar thinking applies. So this is just an outdoor rated solution, which includes the E-flexes and the top inverter cabinet. We call this the Flex Tower. As you can see with these arrows, what they are implying is that you can expand this cabinet depending on how much solar you have, how much batteries that you need. So a lot of folks, maybe they do just one cabinet as seen here on the right, or maybe they do one inverter with 2 batteries. This all depends on how do you want to use it. I always give folks around 20 kilowatt hours. 18 to 20 kilowatt hours is a very good size to start, and you can always add more batteries later. A word of caution. Sizing and designing. I'm going to say it again. Very, 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 very important. Talk to the manufacturer. Talk to a couple manufacturers maybe. Small batteries on large inverters cause problems, right? If we had our NV12 kilowatt inverter with 1 E-flex, we're going to get into some technical weeds here. I think we can already think that, well, that's a really big inverter charging a very small battery. That's not going to be good for the battery, right? You're going to be putting way too many amps in at one time. It's going to affect the battery's lifespan negatively, right? Versus if we sized it with maybe 2 or 3 of the E-flexes. So sizing and designing webinars, we have a lot of training on our website. We have forms that you can review. Proper sizing and designing goes a very long way for the investment in your energy storage system. Here's the inverter I talked about. It is one box. It is a 12 kilowatt inverter. It has a 200 amps of AC pass-through. It's outdoor rated. It has 3 MPPTs for up to 21 kW of PV, and you can send up to 18 kilowatts to the AC output. It's all in one, right? So you have a generator input, PV, on-grid, off-grid capability. You can also do 3-phase 208 volt projects for my developers, installers out there, or if you're a homeowner on a 208 volt service. You have a very nice home, I'm sure. And it is outdoor rated as well. So that's where I really talk about how we have an outdoor rated battery and an outdoor rated inverter and an outdoor rated cabinet. right? We take outdoor rated installations extremely seriously. We have two other models of the Envy. We have an 8 kilowatt version and a 10 kilowatt version, right? The difference there is certainly the cost, how much PV we can input and how much power we can output. And then certainly, depending on what you want to do with this, how you may want to scale the system later. If you wanted to add more PV, if you needed more power to, let's say, your main service panel or critical load panel, all considerations to be made. The benefit of Fortress having its inverter, I tell folks, is really helps us with quality, but also really good service, right? We have localized service here in the US on the West and the East Coast that supports you guys. If you have issues, you can call into our line, 877-497-396937, excuse me, ask for technical support and you can get somebody on the phone. So having that localized service goes a long way. And in the past, there was always this concern that when you had third-party partners, there was a lot of finger pointing. Fortress said, well, let's stop with that. Everything coming from manufacturer has a lot of benefits, but there are benefits for third party as well, right? For flexibility, for many different reasons that I can always dive into with you guys one-on-one if needed. The monitoring of that is twofold. We do have a monitoring app with the Guardian. It's going to come with your solution, and you can monitor this via iOS or Android to get monitoring details of the batteries that you have on site, along with registering your batteries. This allows us also to do different things like remote maintenance, getting live technical support through the app on your iPhone. So that way, as an installer, it's one less truck roll for you. As a homeowner, you know that Fortress is communicating with you and is able to, see what's going on with your solution and get you a resolution as soon as possible.
Not to be nitpicky, Alex, but is that also for Android?
It is, yeah.
Okay.
Nick, pick all you want, Chuck. That's why I'm here.
Yeah, when people just say Apple or or iPhone, you get kind of rejecting.
It's iOS or Android. You can download the Fortress Power app. Very easy process. I could walk through it with you. You're just basically going to register your batteries on your phone. It's going to automatically register it. You're going to fill out your warranty registration, and then basically you're going to have the app where you can do your monitoring of the battery solution that you have on site. Certainly the inverter has monitoring as well from the PV side of things, so you can check your PV production, so on and so forth. If you're an installer partner calling in today, you have fleet management, right? So if you have a fleet of these things out there, you can see the whole fleet, how they're performing, setting up maintenance and alarm scheduling if you needed to do so. But all of that's done through the app, Chuck. Yes. Android, you're good.
Great, thanks.
Very welcome. One app for all. Here's how we're going to be looking at the app for in the new year, right? The biggest advantage, I think, for folks, at least as a manufacturer nowadays, is the inclusion of very good software, right? The hardware, for my folks in the industry, we know that the hardware is maybe not stale. That's not a good word, but there's not a lot of differentiation we can make with hardware at the moment until the next technology comes around. Maybe it's lithium titanate, maybe it's that crazy solid state battery, I don't know. But the software is what allows you to do advanced load control, monitoring, load programming, so on and so forth. So that bleeds into why we took that approach with focusing on software, so we could get monitoring for Chuck, for example, or maybe you want to be a part of a program, right? That is all part of the software package that we offer at Fortress. So when you're doing your research, what's another question you're going to ask? What kind of software do you have with this thing? What kind of monitoring do you have? Can it work off of Wi-Fi? Is it just Wi-Fi? Does it do Bluetooth, Ethernet? What's the deal? It's going to help you better understand what's the best solution for your needs. Again, some solutions that don't have monitoring, maybe you just need a low-cost battery. That's totally fine too. I cannot tell you how to do your purchasing decision. I can just give you the information to make the right one for you. That was low voltage. We'll talk a little about high voltage. This is one of our newer products. There are two advantages to high voltage is that they're more cost effective and they're more efficient, right? So we're coming out this past year, we released the Avalon. It's a whole home package solution with an inverter, a battery, and a smart energy panel. The battery is a stackable battery in 4.9 kilowatt hours. It's outdoor rated, right? So you stack this up in a series, not parallel like you would with the Evol Max. So it's series. So this would be 4 batteries, and then the BMS lays on top. We have an inverter at 7.6 kW or 11.4, but really the most exciting thing, you guys, is the smart energy panel. The smart energy panel Getting a little technical here. The smart energy panel reduces or removes the need for an AC load, an AC combiner panel, backup, and transfer switch. It's including all of the elements for load shedding into one panel. So for the folks here that are not in installation business, what the heck did I just say? You can have power over, you have power over the loads in your home, how you want to use them. This is the term called load shedding, right? So whether you want to shed some of the heavier loads like HVAC loads or sauna, I don't know, or if you want to prioritize those loads, you can shed off the other low usage loads to prioritize those loads in the home. Think about a person with medical equipment at their home. They want to load shed everything besides what they need at that time, which is medical equipment. The smart energy panel also comes with an EV plugin, as you'll see here, and a generator plugin. So the days of just the battery and an inverter are kind of moving away from us, and Fortress is now trying to innovate to get to the point where your home is your microgrid, right? We have a battery, an energy panel, EV, and a generator plug-in as well. The inverter can be AC or DC coupled. The battery can be wall-mounted or floor-mounted. Stackable design has some pros and cons, right? You can modularly build it up as your needs change. Technical support wise, if obviously you got to get to that bottom battery, you're going to have to unbuild all those stacks. Same with anything else. Again, it is still LFP. We are never deviating from the LFP chemistry. We know that's the gold standard. But what we're doing now is working in higher volts and lower amps in a series connection with the battery, the inverter, and then the smart energy panel.
So is the EV charger like, if you will, an add-on, or is it part of the kit?
It's an add-on. So Chuck, if you wanted to get an EV charger, it's something you would add on to your job. Go ahead.
Okay, gotcha.
Not everybody needs it. So that's why we didn't include it into that. Because I mean, I still drive a gas car. I know some of you are probably shocked, but I still drive a gas car. So I wouldn't need the EV charger. Now, if I invested in this, I would get, the battery, the inverter, and the SEP, Smart Energy Panel acronym. So that way, if I wanted to get an EV charger, it's always a possibility. It's a level 2 charger as well. So the idea here being, we're going to help you reduce your costs, still lean into these different programs you work with, have an all-in-one package solution with a lot of features from load shedding, generator, EV plug-in, a stackable solution that grows as your needs change, or if they don't, and this can all be installed outside because of those new code requirements I spoke about earlier. More on the Avalon, we do webinars maybe once a week, maybe once every 2 weeks. Go to www.fortresspower.com, go to training, and you can check out our webinar schedule. We do a lot of Avalon webinars with our sales team and technical support team about what this solution includes, whether you're an installer and you want to learn more about the installation method, whether you're an engineer just trying to figure out how the heck can I use this thing on my home. We have webinars of that sort through our training portal. You'll even, if you're lucky, you'll see some of the videos I've done, 5 years ago. You'll see young Alex. Not talking about the Avalon, but talking about other stuff. Those are always a hoot. Commercial. How do I start this? Commercial has been, I think, a huge, not maybe a miss, but there's been not a great solution for commercial solutions because of technology. Now, Fortress, and even just like the past 2 years, the technology has come such a long way. What technology might you be asking about? Things like, the cost per kilowatt hour for these large battery packs, the software needed to do advanced load control and load function with like load shedding or demand rates, right? Well, Fortress, because of the software acquisition, the experience in hardware, we're able to combine that into an all-in-one package for CNI. So as you guys remember, we had batteries that ranged from 5.4 to 4.2 megawatt hours, right? We started at 5.4 at the eFlex. The eVault Max residential caps at 370. Anything above that, we're looking at this line that I'm going to present here to you today. Part of this includes the EMS, the energy management solution, not the battery management solution, the energy management solution. So you see here the Keystone EMS, residential and commercial, is the facilitator between distributed assets and resources on grid or off grid. So whether you're doing a CNI BESS on a commercial home, that connects to this EMS with the generator function or a public EV charger function, having that O&M fleet management participating in energy services projects or even wind as well. So I don't want to not emphasize the fact that our EMS is a very big deal in that it helps with energy cost saving from a commercial standpoint, leveraging a different revenue from different programs and applications. And at the end of the day, if you're a commercial client or commercial business owner, again, we want you guys to get the maximum benefit from the installation of this solution. How we're doing this is modeling with our two products, the eSpire and the eSpire Mini, to help you guys understand what is this investment bringing you. Right, so here is a snippet of an installation that I had worked on in New Mexico and Taos, right, where they had a particular size solar array. We had quoted out one of our eSpire systems. I'll talk about it. And then gave you like a CapEx total on how much that investment will cost. The really cool part of this is that we can break out the incentives and tax benefits, right? The incentives of the federal tax credit, tax benefits of bonus depreciation, MACRs, for example, break out the percentage of savings from reducing those demand charges and give you a payback, right? What I like the most, I'm afraid to annotate because it's going to mess up my flow, but what I like the most here is you'll see this payback number, 4.9 years. 4.9 years, guys. That means an investment today paybacks in less than 5 years based on the modeling that we did off of your $350,000 investment. So year 6, you're in the green. I guess technically in the good. So modeling, a couple things we need for modeling. You're going to need 15-minute interval data. We have a checklist that you can send to us. We can help you walk through how we did the model, what assumptions need to change, where are you located, all of these things we build into this model to give you what you'll see here as a project overview. The product itself products themselves, sorry, are the eSpire and the eSpire Mini. The eSpire Mini shown here on my screen is a little bit larger than our residential line, right? It's 30, 60, or 90 kW of power at 208 volt or 480 volts AC. It's AC or DC coupled, and can do a storage from 81 kilowatt hours to 266 kilowatt hours, and you can stack 3 of them together. So you're probably thinking, well, I could do 390 kWs with 800 kilowatt hours. That's totally possible. It is an all-in-one box solution with a built-in HVAC and fire suppression. And you can see here, it's a all-in-one containerized solution. Batteries go here on the left. The PCS and other circuit breakers go here on the right. And this would be installed outside. Again, there is HVAC built into that forced air cooling to help mitigate those really high temperatures in Arizona, Chuck, as an example.
Alex,
Yes.
we're attempting to end this on time for everybody. So I don't mean to rush things, but since we will be able to send this out to everybody, I thought maybe we could wrap it up. Let's wrap it up. Last thing. We have another commercial, 125 kW, 280 kilowatt hours, a little bit higher in terms of size than the eSpire Mini, same software. Here's a project I did here in Northern California for a school, managing their demand and charging their EV bus fleet. All you got to think here, it's still LFP, but we're just looking at a larger size, right? A lot of this is form factor and size in terms of power output and storage. FortressPower.com, education and training. Go to webinars. Check out our training portal. It's free. Free is for me. Thank you for your time. 12:30. Not bad at all. You're the bomb. Yep. Love Thank it. You guys. I have 12:29, so your clock's fast. Well, I'm glad I made it, and thank you everybody for joining. I hope you found the webinar informative and helpful. I know we covered a lot, so these slides will get out to you guys. And yeah, if you have any questions, feel welcome to give me a ring. Thank you again, everybody, for making time. I will be sending out some post-webinar communication, which will include his slides as well as contact information. And there'll be some bonus material on the news section of CenturionTechnologies.com. So be sure to check that out as well. You can follow us on socials. We're on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn. Would love to continue the conversation. So thank you again for your time. Happy holidays to everybody. We'll see you in January. Thanks, Ashley. Thanks, Greg. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Craig. Bye, Alex.